Ladies and gentlemen, we have a very interesting news roundup for you today, going over tons of new tidbit updates from James Gunn about Superman Legacy. For example, he's finally acknowledged that Nicholas Hoult has been cast as Lex Luthor, so we need to get into that and what he has to say about it. He talks about Jor-El and the rumors surrounding Kurt Russell. Of course, he's gone on a little bit of a debunking spree as well, so we need to address exactly what he said there. And also, he's responded to some of the backlash. There is something that's made me very giddy with regards to the Batman Part 2. I have got a lot to say about that because I think us, the Batman fans, with regards to Part 2, are just dying for any kind of info. And this is, to be honest, the last thing I expected to hear, and that is with regards to Joker. So guys, lots to say in this video. I hope you enjoy it. If you do, go ahead and leave a like on it. It really helps my channel out, and consider subscribing for all kinds of new updates just like this. So let's start right from the top. Here we have a post from James Gunn finally talking about Nicholas Hoult being cast as Lex Luthor, and here you can see that he's actually had a photo taken. So right here he says, yes, finally I could answer Nicholas Hoult is Lex Luthor in Superman Legacy, and I couldn't be happier. We went out to dinner last night to celebrate and discussed how we can create a Lex that will be different, and this is really interesting. I guess they would say this, but will be different from anything you've seen before and will never forget. Then he goes on to quote unquote, but James, we heard this weeks ago. Why didn't you tell us it was true? Because although we were discussing it, it wasn't final until a couple of days ago, and I don't want to tell you all something that isn't certain. Anyway, here's to Lex and Nicholas, one of my very favorite characters in the DCU. So as I thought when we discussed this before, when Deadline, The Hollywood Reporter, you name it, were making headlines about Nicholas Hoult being cast as Lex Luthor, it wasn't acknowledged by James Gunn, and as I said at the time, it's probably because the dotted line wasn't signed. But what I also find interesting, and a lot of people are pointing this out, I don't want to look too deep into this, but he does leave off this post with a little DNA emoji, a microscope, basically very sciencey there, if you know what I mean. So I don't know if that's a little bit of a hint. I don't want to go crazy, but it's like, okay, maybe this Lex is, Lex is very intelligent. There's LexCorp. There's all of the, research that they do there in their R&D. Not only is there eventually the war suit, but there's all kinds of kryptonite ballistic weapons tests, all of that stuff. But the first thing that came to my mind when I saw this is like, oh my God, with the Man of Steel, David Corenswet's version being somewhat new to the world. Maybe Lex has got to the point where he's like, man, I want that guy's DNA. Maybe that would be too much of a giveaway through just James Gunn posting a DNA in a microscope and other sciencey emojis here. But it does make me wonder if this version of Nicholas Hoult's Lex Luthor is going full send into the more scientific basis of all of that and what Lex could be hoping to achieve with it. He can blend Lex to be both, brilliant in all ways, LexCorp businessman, but also very hands-on with the scientific applications and research. And, that's why he could have a certain interest in Superman that way, or maybe just researching a simple way to take down Superman and maybe coming across kryptonite and how that could make it. All this kind of stuff, right? All this kind of stuff. Maybe he already has Superman DNA and he's been testing certain things that can seemingly weaken the Man of Steel, who is seemingly invulnerable. Maybe that could be a part of the plot. Maybe he's so annoyed that this man seems unstoppable, so he's trying anything and everything to look at a way as to how can we take down Superman, just in case, contingency-wise, that this man is capable of basically destroying the world. It's similar, oddly enough, sounds like Ben Affleck's Batman, right? With, if there's, even the slightest chance, we have to take that as an absolute certainty. I probably butchered that quote, but I do wonder if they're flirting with that idea, and Gunn's emojis were a tease of that. Let me know what you think and what you would actually like. More of a businessman, or more of a scientist, or a perfect blend of both. Seeing this fresh photo of Gunn with Nicholas Hoult, very happy for Nicholas Hoult. I'm sure he was gutted at the time, in a sense, that he didn't get the Superman role. For those of you who don't know, he was one of the front runners, supposedly, for Superman. But, do you know what I mean? He can feed all of that energy that, oh, David Corenswet, you got Superman over me. Oh, turns out I'm playing your arch nemesis, Lex. Maybe I've got a few negative feelings from that audition phase that I can direct your way in our performances. Now, the real news that I'm sure many of you want to hear, because to be fair, this is actually something that can rub people the wrong way if it goes a certain way or another. And that is, will Lex Luthor have hair or not? And here we have this user saying, James Gunn, the real question I have is, are you going to make him bald? And Gunn replies, of course. Now, some of you may say that's not news. Lex Luthor is bald, but at the same time, he hasn't always been. Sometimes he has hair in the movie he's in, but then he loses it or whatever in whatever story. Sometimes he might be wearing a wig. Sometimes he might actually just have hair. But obviously, he's most known for not having hair, and Gunn knows that a lot of us just want him to have no hair. So Nicholas Hoult is going bald. Confirmed. Now, this is when this user, I don't get why people say this. I mean, I do in a way, but this user says, come on, man, Michael deserved it. And the image is broken, but I'm guessing it was a picture of Michael Rosenbaum. Gunn replies saying, I love Michael. He was my favorite Lex, and he's one of my very close friends. But I wanted a Lex who was contemporaries with Superman. So, yeah, basically a Lex Luthor who matched Superman in age, whereas Michael Rosenbaum is around 51. Okay, so now we're getting into some of Gunn's responses to, I think, some of the backlash. And this is where I might get into a bit of a Boba rant mode. Here we have this user saying, no more, please. We want a Superman movie. So, you know, Lex has been cast now. Obviously, we heard about Sean Gunn as Maxwell Lord. So this guy's like, oh, no more. You know, we want a Superman movie, right? You know, I get what he's saying. And Gunn's like, what single protagonist movie doesn't have more than 10 speaking roles? And he even says, there will be more. Thank you. And we're going to get into why. And by the way, not trying to alienate anyone who's kind of apprehensive about the cast and more cast members being announced, and fearing that what if this, like this guy here, that this might not be so much a Superman movie. But here, we already have a reply from somebody of whom Gunn kind of agrees with. And some people are finding this comparison, because I've seen it a few times, ridiculous. But I actually disagree, because the principle is the same. So this guy says here, like, right, whenever somebody argues otherwise, show them a pic of the Oppenheimer cast. And even Gunn says in reply to this, yep, so true. Very much a single protagonist film with a lot more characters than we have. I agree with that. And some of you may be like, Boba, you're a clown. Or like I've seen other people say, don't compare a superhero movie to Oppenheimer. But I'm just like, the principle is the same. It really is. Or, okay, don't compare it to Oppenheimer. Compare it to God knows how many other movies out there made in the past year, the past 5 years, the past 10 years, the past 50 years, for crying out loud, that is titled after even one character. The principle is that Oppenheimer, or like other movies like that, there's one character, and you've got all of these cast members like Emily Blunt, Robert Downey Jr., Matt Damon, Josh Hartnett, to Rami Malek, to the list goes on and on, to David Dastmalchian, Alden Ehrenreich. It just keeps going on and 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 on. Honestly, it is a huge cast, absolutely huge. But at the time, you know, with every headline, like Emily Blunt casting, Oppenheimer, Robert Downey Jr. to play this person in Oppenheimer, you didn't have people freaking out, being like, "Oh my god, this movie's so overstuffed. How's it going to be about Oppenheimer? Oh my god, like what's James Gunn doing?" You know, well, not James Gunn, but Nolan. But when it's a superhero movie, I think what it is that when you in a superhero movie called Superman Legacy, it's a Superman movie, right? You see Mr. Terrific, because there's another superhero. You see Guy Gardner, a Lantern, right? Green Lantern. You see Metamorpho. You see another actor cast as Hawk Girl. I think people just, even somewhere subconsciously think because there's other heroes that are, big characters in of themselves in a way, I think they think that's going to take away from the main character. But again, because other movies, feel free to use any example. Like, let me know down in the comments. They're not superheroes, but arguably there's huge characters who help aid the main character's story. There's not that same energy there. I just think because, I know I'm repeating myself, but it's just like you see superheroes, so you think, oh my god, this is a superhero movie about Superman. How can you have this many other superheroes in it, or even other characters? Because it's no different. You have other cast members, other speaking roles, and they help tell that story. James Gunn has been very vocal that Lois and Clark, or, Superman, he is the main protagonist. You're going to have Perry White, Jimmy Olsen, Lois as a part of Clark's life to help aid telling that part of his story. But as for his superhero life, he's talked about how can I tell that part of Clark's life, his super life, without that of his metahuman compatriots? And I think of things like this is a living, breathing DC universe in where they want to show you that heroes exist and have existed for some time. So you're gonna have other heroes out there. Do you know what I mean? Think, I don't know, Invincible, where you have Invincible flying around, but you have like other things going on in the city. Think about The Boys. You have soups everywhere. It's like a, you know, so in this world, it makes sense that you have other characters like this, but everyone pretends that Superman Legacies, Hawkgirl, Metamorpho, Lex Luthor, some more than others will have more screen time, of course, but my point is, for some reason, people are thinking that these characters are going to have like, let's just say the movie's 2 hours and 19 minutes. They're thinking it's going to have like 2 hours and 5 minutes of screen time. Guy Gardner's going to be in like almost every scene, like 2 hours and 2 minutes of it. So oh my God, how are they going to fit in Lois and Clark? I'm sorry, it just frustrates me. I can't prove that these roles won't take away from Superman for a fact, but I will judge that as of when we get the movie. Because right now, I feel like this is really too premature to say what a lot of people are saying. Now, what this user said here wasn't like bad. I've seen much more toxic, negative versions, like really slamming, trying to drag down the movie for the speaking roles that are being announced. But what I will do is go into it with good faith, and yeah, understanding what Gunn says is kind of facts. Like, this is no different to really any other movies, and nobody has the same energy for those other movies with cast members being announced. Do you know what I mean? But if it does turn out that when we see the movie, that the speaking roles, which is less than even that of the Guardians of the Galaxy movies, if it does turn out that the characters do take away from Superman, I will say that. But right now, to go into it with such bad faith when a billion other movies out there do this, I feel like that does reveal a certain transparent stance from a certain group of fans. Not necessarily everyone is under that camp, but if you really look at it objectively, I don't see anything red flaggy right now. Going more down this route, we have this user saying to James Gunn's response there, I think what they're saying is, please, no more superhero cameos setting up the new DC Universe in what you've repeatedly said is a standalone Superman movie. And James Gunn said none of these roles are cameos. Obviously, Mr. Terrific and Metamorpho and that, they're not just going to be like this, right? Superman Legacies playing on the screen right now. Mr. Terrific just comes in like, I'm Mr. Terrific. Metamorpho's just like, oh, I'm Metamorpho. Now, some of you who are very much so in the mindset of this might be like, see, if they're not cameos, they're going to be even bigger roles and take up 2 hours of screen time in a movie. No, these other characters in Superman Legacy can just be sprinkled in, have obviously something more significant to do with the plot, but that doesn't automatically mean just because they're not cameos that they are leading roles to be included in most scenes of the film. So moving on. Here we have a question being asked by this user saying, is this official with regards to Kurt Russell, Jor-El, Jonathan Kent? But Gunn has now finally answered it, guys, saying, I love working with and directing Kurt. Hilarious and fun and talented guy. But no, this was never discussed. Then he goes on to say in an answer to somebody asking, have you casted for Perry White or the Kents yet, so we can just stop seeing a lot of fake rumors? And he says once more, and I will always say this, ultimately, take everything with a grain of salt, whether it's leaks from DCEU Reddit leaks or, I don't know, scoopers, other YouTubers, or whatever it is. Gunn says, just don't trust anything that doesn't come from me. The rumor mill has been insane and profoundly misinformed lately. And in reply to somebody else asking about Jor-El with regards to Kurt Russell, he says, I just answered this to someone else, but no, love Kurt. And it's funny with what he says next. I made a joke about this when I covered it in my previous video. Although the Moors of Krypton are certainly different than ours, I'm not sure I see him as the first-time father of a newborn. And I was joking in how Kurt Russell's 72, so that means he basically was having a great time with Lara at 71 years old, which I'm not saying doesn't happen. You know, it happens. There's 70-year-old people who become dads for the first time. I'm just saying I don't know if he would have been Jor-El. I just felt like he was maybe more of a Jonathan Kent. Maybe it made a little bit more sense with how, you know, Jonathan and Martha can never have kids, so they're like in their late 40s or whatever when they first find Clark, and they raise him. So by the time he's where he's at in this movie, you know, Kurt Russell could have been, 72 years old and basically playing Jonathan Kent, a bit of an older dad who adopted Kal-El or Clark as a baby. And yes, I know actors can play younger than their real age within the universe of the movie, but I would say that Kurt Russell doesn't pull off 50s. What interests me with regards to him saying that is that he's basically indirectly saying that Jor-El will be younger than what you may see Kurt Russell as, whether you want to say he would be 72 in universe or not. The fact is, we know that the Jor-El in Superman Legacy will be looking younger than Kurt Russell. So, as for who that will be, I don't know. We still don't know an age. I think 40s or 50s, but it would be an interesting thing if he basically cast somebody in their 30s. You can have Jor-El be pretty young because that's when he was a father to Kal-El. Krypton exploded, but what was recorded or whatever they show in the Fortress of Solitude is just of, quite simply, when Jor-El was a first-time dad, and he could be like 38. That would be pretty dope. It would be like the youngest Jor-El we've ever got on screen. So let me know your fan cast, because sure, Gunn could cast somebody who's 47, could be a big actor, whatever, but he could also cast a big actor as a youthful Jor-El, and that would make sense as well. So let me know who you would love. Now, after the Maxwell Lord casting that we covered on Saturday, here we have a conversation with the co-creator of Maxwell Lord and James Gunn, with the co-creator saying he's flawed, and in the early stories manipulated by a sentient AI. A bit of a con man, but in the end, Max has a heart of gold and loves his team, but I'm sure you know that. If you want my full thoughts on where things could go, I talked about how, yes, he's not a villain, he's more shady, a bit sleazy, but he's involved with the Justice League International. They could be doing something like that with Sean Gunn being Maxwell Lord, and this being already out there with regards to news already. And Gunn says here, I like the nuanced Max for sure. The evil Max is in some good stories by some good writers and artists, but I always loved the character in Justice League International for being multi-dimensional. Same way I loved Waller in Ostrander's Squad. Two characters able to step out of the all-good or all-evil paradigm that was de rigueur in those days, and still is, actually. And I agree. I mean, I do like evil for evil's sake, straight up Joker just going crazy, right? But I do love characters who have a bit of a spectrum there, and the more development that they have, it's more of a rich arc that they can go on. And Maxwell Lord, I think James will probably present him to us in a way where we don't like him. It's like, screw this guy. But the more time we will spend with him, and there might not be barely any time, by the way, in Superman Legacy. We're hearing that he could be just mentioned, but will play more significant roles down the line in the DCU. But throughout his arc, as things flesh out a little bit, it's like, oh, damn, there's a bit more to this guy, I think Gunn is all about that, really all about that with his characters. And once again, with regards to Maxwell Lord, we have Gunn basically, some people are joking that he's on the warpath. I don't think so. I think he's just at this point of where I'm kind of frustrated on behalf of him, because he's probably seeing this all the time with this user saying, not casting one actor to play multiple characters, huh? You said not happening, and a lie detector shows that. So this is with regards to Sean Gunn playing Weasel, G.I. Robot and Creature Commandos, and now using his likeness in an actual on-screen role for Maxwell Lord. And Gunn, and rightfully so, says, I said very clearly, actors will generally only be playing one character on screen, and said in the same response that for voice actors, it's not the same. Sean, Alan Tudyk, Maria Bakalova, Steve Agee, etc. all play multiple roles in Creature Commandos. That doesn't mean they won't play different characters on screen. So, what's the need you have, and a handful of others, to desperately need to believe I'm lying, that you seem to purposely ignore certain parts of what I said? Thank you, James, for saying that, because people do. I said some people are so willfully obtuse with regards to what Gunn has said. Sean Gunn, yes, he plays Weasel. This is a CGI character. Does Weasel look like Sean Gunn? He's fully CGI. No. No. Will G.I. Robot and Creature Commandos, who, yes, as many point out, as per we've heard it from James Gunn, animated characters will go into live action one day. This, that, and the other. So G.I. Robot could come into live action. Oh my God, he's played by Sean Gunn. Will a robot look like Sean Gunn? Does Robot Man, Cliff Steele from Doom Patrol look like Brendan Fraser? No. So, Sean Gunn playing Maxwell Lord with his actual likeness. Yes, he's playing other characters, but it's an on-screen using his likeness role. There's no issue. Yes, he played Calendar Man in Suicide Squad, but come on, guys, that's a cameo. He's not going to be maintaining the Calendar Man likeness for that character. The only time Sean Gunn is going to look like Sean Gunn in the DCU is Maxwell Lord. Period. It's over. Just let it end there. Please. Like, I get that you don't want the new DCU, but this is becoming stupid now. Up next from James Gunn, he put this on his Instagram story, and it's from the Alex Ross art page on Instagram. And I quote tweeted this on Twitter saying, I'm telling you, it's like a reverse Kingdom Come, baby, because I think, I'm not saying this is Gunn, low-key teasing us, this is what the suit's going to look like, because that still remains to be seen. Will he choose Trunks? Won't he choose Trunks? But one thing I'm pretty damn confident about, I could be wrong, but I do think he's going to choose the old classic black and red symbol, or, the Kingdom Come symbol, something like this. The Kingdom Come teases from James Gunn have been so plentiful since he came in, to the point of, especially with some of his teases about information and general directions, I think it's going to take a lot of influences from the Kingdom Come storyline. However, that's set in the future, where Superman's older, but the thing is, all of those things are going to be taken into when Superman is the age he is in this, which is David Corenswet's age. But we're going to have to wait and see. But I would love to know what you think about that, and if you think that this could be a tease of where things could go. All right, and lastly in this video, we need to talk about the Batman Part 2. Do you know how good that feels? And look, I know to some people this might not be big news. Sure, I speculated about this being a possibility, but with the way it's being articulated here, it's like, okay, this might be more than what I thought. So, Barry Keoghan, who plays Matt Reeves' Joker in his Batverse, was asked on a potential return for the Batman Part 2. And whenever Barry Keoghan's asked in an interview, especially on screen, and I remember this for the Batman Part 1, where it basically came out and he was asked about it, he gets very shy and fidgety. He, doesn't really maintain much eye contact. He's kind of like that. And he was the exact same in this interview, but it's even better than that. It's even better than him just like, maybe giving it away through body language. Oh God, he's obviously acting nervous, so he's probably in the Batman Part 2. But he actually basically tells us that he is. And I'm all for truly just needing to hear I am in the Batman Part 2 before believing it. But here, I don't think you can misinterpret what he said in really any other way. So, I'm not going to play the clip. Feel free to watch it on the Batman Film News. I just don't want any kind of copyright stuff. But these are what he says, quote unquote. I can't really say anything about that, my man. It would be exciting, wouldn't it? To see the Joker come to life again? And then he smiles. Like, my smile says it all. You know what I mean? And the cool thing about this as well is, all while the script needs to be completed, for all I know, by the time I upload this video, we might finally get that announcement, because we are kind of expecting any day or any week, month now, for that announcement to be made, so pre-production can truly fully start swinging, that Matt Reeves has likely reached out saying, hey man, don't book anything for this period of production date that we're looking at, because I kind of need you to come back in for the Joker. So do you know what I mean? You would kind of let people know in advance so they're not on a 6-month shoot, really busy. So Barry Keoghan knows he's definitely coming back. Now, is it a really big role or not? So this is the thing where I'm like, well, yeah, what's it going to be? Because another big factor to our speculations here is the Arkham spin-off show. We know so far for the Batverse, you've got the Batman movies, Part 1, Part 2, Part 3. You've got the Penguin show. Apparently, the GCPD show is still in its own unique development. They are separate, according to Deadline. But the Arkham show has found its showrunner and writer. We didn't hear much news about that other than that announcement, because then the writer's strike happened. And obviously, that person couldn't really do much work. And, we're back up and running again, but they're probably not ready to speak about it yet. But the point is, the theory was such that maybe, obviously, with the Arkham Asylum show, let's just say it's an 8-episode limited series again, likened to that of the Penguin. By the point of those 8 episodes, Joker and Riddler could very much so initiate their comeback story. So they finally break out, and let's just say that the Arkham show was released after the Batman Part 2. Well, what would that do? It's another show that bridges the gap between the second movie and the third movie, just like how Penguin's bridging the gap between the first movie and the second movie. And then you have Joker and Riddler pop up as arguably perhaps the main villains of the Part 3 showdown. What I'm now thinking is that still going to be the case? Because if Barry Keoghan's Joker is going to be in part 2, maybe it is still the case, and they're just going to tease a little nugget scene like we had in the first movie that really just sets up the Arkham show even more, for the Arkham show to release sometime between the Batman part 2 and part 3. Or one thing that people have suggested, and I don't know so much about this, but it is completely possible that the Arkham show could still release before the Batman part 2. Now, you may be like, oh, I don't know, but like, how are they really going to get that done before then? Well, don't forget that the Batman part 2 isn't releasing until all the way in October of 2025, October 3rd, 2025. Let's just say it's an 8-episode limited series like The Penguin. These shows aren't CGI heavy. They're 8 episodes. I'm not going to dispute that they still take some time to shoot, yes, but if they're not like VFX or like majorly CGI heavy, yeah, sure, post-production and editing will take a little bit of time, but they might be able to, if they film sometime even like towards the latter of 2024, they could release that for like a ramp up into part 2. But even though while that's possible, I think it's maybe more of the case that this could be just another teaser, just like the first movie. But I do personally like the prospect and very foundation of what we were teased with Barry Keoghan's Joker. I think people do want that like very kind of chiseled, pretty makeup, killing joke kind of Joker. And I get that. That's more my preference and ballpark as well. But I'm not completely shut off to this. And I really dig what Matt Reeves said about the stuck smile like Conrad Veidt, the man who laughs. And I can ramble about this forever. I probably will in the next Batman discussion series. But it's made me very excited because I personally do want to see more Joker in the Batman films. I am very patient. I can wait. I don't think he needs to be done right away. I think Matt Reeves does know that. Maybe Matt Reeves is cooking up to a larger part 3 role, which is years and years and years away. It really is. Like 2025 is part 2. Imagine part 3. That is a hot minute away. So up until then, it could just be nice little sprinkles, you know, seasoning of Joker. And that would be really organically fleshed out if you think about it come part 3, because it would have been a nice, slow, you know, cook to when we actually get the full performance and plot of whatever an unleashed Joker will be, maybe in part 3, assuming that speculation and you know, timeline of the way things could go is true. But it might not be. Who knows? But let me know your thoughts on that, guys, down in the comments below, and every other story that I rambled about today. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, would really appreciate a like on it. Do consider subscribing, of course, as well for more rambly news updates like this. But until next time, ladies and gentlemen, just thank you so much for watching. I hope you have a lovely rest of your day, and I'll see all of you guys in the next video. Goodbye.